Part 2. The narrator follows a trail of bloody footprints leading to the underground surgical wing, a place erased from the hospital's records. Inside, rusty tools begin moving on their own. Operating tables shake and surgical lights flicker violently. A distorted voice whispers from every direction, "You were chosen!" The narrator discovers a locked room filled with preserved organs floating in jars, each labeled with a patient's name, except one. The last jar has their own name on it. Before they can escape, the hospital doors slam shut. Something begins walking behind them, slow, heavy, surgical footsteps. The narrator tries to flee through the emergency stairwell, only to find it looping endlessly. Every floor looks identical. Every sign points back to Surgical Wing B, Dr. Hargrove's domain. The surgeon finally appears, wearing a cracked surgical mask and holding a bone saw still wet with blood. He whispers the same phrase over and over. "You're my final experiment." The narrator runs into the ICU, where old patients rise from their beds, their bodies stitched together like failed experiments. In the final moment, the lights go out and the last thing the narrator hears is the sound of metal scraping closer. Operating Room 0. Authorized personnel. Non Kessler felt his heart jerk inside his chest like something was pulling it toward the door. Lucy nodded. Everything ends there. The other dead patients whispered together, and everything begins again. Kessler swallowed and stepped toward the new door. The closer he got, the louder his heart beat, like the black heart inside him recognized this place. He pushed the door open. The room inside was enormous, larger than any real hospital operating room. Shadows licked the walls, tools floated in midair, and in the center stood an operating table made of bone and rusted steel. Above it hovered a massive heart. Black, pulsing, alive. With every beat, the floor shook. Ba doom. Ba doom. Ba doom. A voice echoed all around him, deep, layered, ancient. You returned. Smoke rose from the shadows, forming into the patient from before. But bigger, taller, more monstrous. His open chest cavity glowed like a furnace. His black veins stretched across the room like roots. "Why am I here?" Kessler asked, voice trembling. The monstrous patient stepped closer. "You were chosen," he said. "We are the surgeons of endings. We decide who leaves and who stays trapped between life and death." Kessler shook his head. "I don't want to hurt anyone." "You already did," the patient replied calmly. "Now you must decide if your new life will save others or end them." The shadow tendrils rose from the floor, wrapping around the giant heart. Above the table, ba doom, ba doom, ba doom. The patient stepped closer, whispering, "Every surgeon must face his greatest failure. This is yours." Kessler lifted his trembling hands, staring at his new monstrous limbs. "Why me?" The patient leaned in, face inches from his. "Because, doctor, you started this, and only you can finish it." Kessler screamed as the black heart burst open, revealing thousands of trapped faces inside, all screaming at once. And the surgery began. Part. Native opening. The darkness inside the ICU thickened like smoke, swallowing every trace of light. I pressed myself against the wall, trying not to breathe too loudly. The sound of metal scraping across the tiles echoed from the hall, slow, steady, patient. Dr. Hargrove wasn't rushing. He knew exactly where I was. A cold draft slid through the room, carrying with it the faint smell of antiseptic and something far worse. Rot, old blood, burnt flesh. The air felt heavier with every passing second. I crawled toward a pale emergency lamp flickering weakly in the corner. It barely lit the room, but enough for me to see the patients, those stitched, broken bodies staring at me with lifeless eyes. Their heads twitched at unnatural angles, held together by black surgical thread. One of them whispered, voice trembling like static, "Turn back, you can't leave." But I kept moving. Suddenly, the emergency lamp went out. The silence cracked. Then, a metal tray slammed onto the floor behind me. I froze. The scraping sound grew louder, closer. Then, breathing, right behind me. I turned slowly, And he was there. Dr. Hargrove stood just inches away, his cracked surgical mask hanging lopsided, one eye completely missing. The other eye glowed faintly white, like something alive was moving inside it. His gloves were soaked red, dripping onto the floor. He raised the bone saw. The blood on it was fresh. "Your heart?" he whispered, his voice like steel grinding on bone. "It's still strong. You'll do perfectly." He lunged. I rolled aside, the saw slicing through the floor where I'd just been. Sparks flew. I ran, slipping through the hallway as alarms began screaming through the building. Red emergency lights flashed, painting the walls like a slaughterhouse. The hospital came alive. Doors slammed. Gurneys rolled on their own. Surgical tools rained from the ceiling like metal rain. I sprinted toward the exit, the same door that had trapped me before, and to my shock, it was wide open. Wind howled from outside, cutting through the hallway like a warning. I didn't think. I ran. But as soon as I crossed the threshold, everything stopped. The wind, the alarms, even my heartbeat. The world outside looked exactly like the hospital interior. Same hallway, same lights, same peeling walls. I hadn't escaped. I had looped right back inside. I heard footsteps behind me. Not running, not rushing, just calmly approaching. No one leaves during the night of opening. My throat dried. Then I saw them, the patients. All of them. Hundreds. Blocking the halls, crawling on the ceilings, dragging their bodies across the floor. Their sewn mouths ripped open as they spoke in one voice. "You're the final experiment." The lights went out again, but this time, they didn't come back on. And in the dark, I felt cold hands grab my ankles and wrists. The last thing I heard was the bone saw buzzing to life. The bone saw's scream tore through the darkness, its vibration crawling up my spine. Those cold, stitched hands dragged me across the tiles, my nails scraping helplessly against the floor. I kicked, twisted, fought, but the weight of dozens of broken bodies held me down. Then, light. A single surgical lamp snapped on above me. I was strapped to an operating table. Metal cuffs locked my wrists. My ankles were tied with thick leather straps, old and stained. The room around me was a nightmare laboratory, shelves lined with jars of floating organs, surgical notes pinned with rusted scalpels, and walls covered in bloody drawings of human anatomy. The smell of disinfectant burned my lungs. Then I saw him, Dr. Hargrove. Standing over me, his mask cracked open, revealing half of a skeletal jaw. His remaining eye flickered like a dying light bulb, filled with something alive, something that was no longer human. He placed the bone saw beside my head. Its buzzing stopped, but its metal still vibrated. "You survived longer than anyone," he said quietly, almost proudly. "You resisted fear. Your mind refused to break. That makes you the perfect host." My heart thudded painfully. He leaned close. I could smell the rot beneath his mask. "You will carry my work beyond these walls." He lifted a scalpel. I pulled at the restraints until my skin tore. Nothing. No movement. No escape. He touched the blade to my chest. Bang! A deafening sound blasted through the room. The lights flickered. Glass shattered. Screams filled the hallway, not mine. The patients. The walls shook violently as alarms blared. Something was breaking into the hospital. No, something was waking up. The ground split, tiles popping upward like teeth. The patients crawled backward, afraid for the first time. Dr. Hargrove staggered, his skeletal jaw twitching. A deep rumble filled the air. Then a voice distorted, ancient, echoing across every corridor. "The experiment is over." The surgical lamp above me exploded, showering sparks onto my skin. My restraints melted away like wax. I fell from the table. The hospital was collapsing in on itself. Walls twisting, doors stretching like shadows, ceilings bending downward. It wasn't an attack. The hospital was alive, and it was dying. Dr. Hargrove roared a horrible, guttural scream and lunged at me, fingers like bone needles. I ran. The hallways warped around me, but this time, they weren't looping. They were pushing me forward, guiding me. Lights flickered like arrows. Gurneys rolled aside. The exit door glowed at the end of the corridor. Behind me, the doctor's voice tore through the air. "Come back! You're mine!" I didn't stop. The walls cracked open. Pipes burst. Steam filled the halls. The hospital tried to swallow him. The patient screamed and dissolved into dust. I reached the exit, and for the first time, it opened. A blinding white flash swallowed everything. Epilogue. I woke up on the sidewalk outside the abandoned hospital. Morning light warmed my face. Birds chirped. The building stood silent. Normal, empty, dead. But on the doors, written in fresh red letters, "Discharge subject, you." And when I looked at my reflection in the glass, for a moment, just a split second, I saw his eyes staring back. Still alive, still watching, still inside me. The experiment never ended.